if we all have compassion for others, we can make so many changes in this world.
On the show today is certified nurse practitioner with a Master of Science in Nursing and the founder and host of Project Basecamp podcast, Aria Candelaria. Aria, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
First question is, what does Basecamp represent for someone starting their journey toward addiction recovery?
So I have worked as a nurse practitioner probably for the last 6 years, and what I've come to realize is that everybody has a story to share.
Yes.
And listening to people talk about their own past, it's private. You know, we can't disclose that to anybody. So I just thought that it was really important for me to find a way to create something where people had a space to talk. And in my journey through this, I thought, a podcast would be amazing. And talking to people and allowing people to be open about it, especially talking about recovery. And so why I decided to name this Project Basecamp was because, thinking about a base camp, before you climb that mountain, you sometimes need a space where there's people with you, a team that helps support you on your way to the top of the mountain. And maybe you can't make it on the first climb. So sometimes you need to come back to regroup and
Keep
trying. Yep. And so that's why I felt like base camp was, a cool way to make a space for people to have safety and just talk about those deep things that they might not really share with others.
Was there a specific patient interaction that made you realize a podcast was necessary?
Yeah, actually, it was a patient who I told him, you have an amazing story and your story could help so many people. I think you should tell your story. You should be on a podcast. And he would laugh. He's no longer my patient because he's moved on and his life is doing
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's how well he's doing. But then when I was coming down to it for myself, thinking about I really want to help more people, I even reached out to him. And, one thing about it though, not everybody's ready to tell their story because sometimes there's really deep trauma.
It's difficult.
Yeah. And so they might just not be ready to share their own story. But, he was the person that just really, I thought about it. And I was like, I really need to find a way to capture these conversations that I'm having with people, but for people that actually really want to share their story. So the people that I interviewed, they aren't my patients. A lot of the people that I'm interviewing are actually certified peer support workers. So what a certified peer support worker is somebody who has their own lived experience with addiction or mental health, and now they're in a period of recovery. And actually, to be a certified peer support worker, you have to have 3 years in recovery from addiction to even be in the role. But that's how powerful this role is. And I think I've also learned how grateful I am to have peer support workers on my team. And that's why most of the people that I have interviewed are peer support workers.
Are any of them working on the podcast with you?
No, the podcast, it's just me and my husband who helps me. Yeah, he's my producer. But the people that I've interviewed, either I've asked if they would like to, or people have actually just sent me a message and just said, I would really love to share my own story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Who's your primary target listener?
Really, it is for anybody that is going through their own journey, whether they've tried and tried and tried, or they're in it now and they are sober or still struggling, But that's who I want to hear this. The people that are working in the field, I feel like can benefit from it too.
Absolutely.
Just to hear other people's, stories and the things that they've lived through, because to be in this field, you have to have a lot of compassion and be very open-minded. Sometimes somebody walks in the door and, they look like they've had a really rough time. Sometimes patients I see are homeless, and I think first judgment, people might think like, they've done this to themselves, or, they got themselves in this situation. But really, if you listen to their story, you're going to learn things about them that you're just like amazed that they've even come to this clinic, that they've sought out help, that they are that they haven't given up. And I think that more people just need to see that if we all have compassion for others, we can make so many changes in this world.
Yeah, definitely. How do your daily clinical experiences as a nurse practitioner inform the topics and tone of the podcast?
I really have deep conversations with people on a daily basis. And patients are really, really at their lowest point when they come into the clinic. I have boxes of tissue on my desk.
Probably many.
Yeah, because you just ask somebody that one question and tears just start streaming down their face. And so there is also a mental toll that it takes on myself because I'm pouring a lot of energy into people, And the other part of it is that sometimes you're wanting them to change, and I think we all want that instant change. Like, if I'm going to put this energy into this person, I want them to change, and they need to change now.
But it happens gradually.
Yeah, it's very gradual. And so in the podcast, I feel like it's a really great way to tell the story and how long that change can take for people,
Yeah.
It's years often.
Yes, it is.
And so I understand it more and more now, that it's going to take time for anybody to make change.
How do you navigate patient privacy? We were talking about it earlier, and HIPAA boundaries while sharing raw, real-world recovery stories.
Mm-hmm. That, to go back to what I said, anybody that's on the podcast, they're willing to share their story. So it's not a patient that I've treated, and that's not, I would never be interviewing any patients that I'm seeing currently. I do know that for people to be so vulnerable and to share their story, it takes a lot. And sometimes they have to decide
Courage.
if it's something they really want to share.
Yeah.
Because once they share that story and it's out for public to view, sometimes you can't go back from that.
No.
And I think even some people I've interviewed have had kind of a backlash from the things that they've shared in their own personal lives. But what I recognize is that the people that are sharing their story in these interviews is that they're doing it for the greater good, and they're doing it to help other people. And they probably wish that they had heard somebody else's story too along the way in their recovery journey.
What do you wish other medical providers understood better about addiction medicine that you address on your show?
Yeah, so in the space that I'm working now, what I do is I am offering patients medicated assisted treatment. And so that might be Suboxone, that might be methadone, that might be Vivitrol for alcohol use disorder. Lots of medications that are helping people with addiction. And what I hope is that there are other providers out there willing to take a chance on learning more about addiction so that people can have access to these treatments. It's something interesting that that has changed within the last 5 years is that Suboxone treatment, which is used for opioid use disorder, it could only have been prescribed if you had it was called a data waiver, and it was like a specific training. So only certain providers could do that. However, after COVID and things got more difficult for people, they opened it up to all prescribers. So any person who is a prescriber, they could now prescribe Suboxone. But I do think that a lot of prescribers choose not to because of stigma.
Yeah.
So that's what
So how do you break down those barriers?
I think really what it comes down to is just having more conversations like this.
Yeah.
Having more podcasts, having more conferences, having more events. And I think that that's really happening. So September is Recovery Month. And in Albuquerque, they have a huge event. It's Albuquerque Recovery, and it's coming up. So hopefully people see that there's places where they can access other providers, ask questions to them, and see what's happening in the community.
Where's this going to be held?
Civic Plaza?
Civic Plaza.
I don't know if that's
But it's in September.
Yes.
Okay, we'll find out. You've spoken about how misunderstood methadone clinics are. What's the biggest myth you hope to debunk through your interviews?
Well, to be transparent, I've only ever worked in one methadone clinic. But the clinic that I work for, Duke City Recovery Toolbox, I believe that they're on the forefront of other clinics. And so I actually spoke to this on one of the podcasts that I did. And somebody wrote a comment on there saying that not all clinics are like that. And so I had a deeper conversation with my medical director, and he said that it's true that a lot of clinics, they have their own rules. And yes, there are federal laws and regulations that every clinic has to follow. But I think the clinic where I work at goes above and beyond to help people. And we follow an integrative health model, which means, say somebody comes into our clinic, their top priority is seeking out treatment for addiction. They haven't thought about their blood pressure, their diabetes for years, and they don't want to seek out a primary care provider because they know that they're not going to get the treatment because they have an addiction. They're on fentanyl, methamphetamine, and so they would rather choose not to treat those issues. Even if I'm telling them, I think you really need to see a primary care provider. You really need to see a specialist. They won't. And so in our clinic, we sometimes bridge the gap for them, and we are also treating some of those chronic conditions that might go untreated. And so our clinic is just very unique and special.
That's great.
Yeah.
What legislative changes in New Mexico do you advocate for to improve recovery sources?
I guess if, talking about the methadone clinics, I just wish that more clinics would practice in the same fashion that Duke City Recovery Toolbox practices. Because there should be the highest standard, Every clinic should be at the highest standard for treating people. So if there's any way to make that happen, that's what I would be,
advocating for.
Yes.
Which guest story has had the most profound impact on your personally since launching the show?
Actually, it's an interview that I'm in the process of editing right now.
Oh.
So it's not out. But Ruth Riley, she is an artist in recovery from Acoma Pueblo. And I think why her story is so impactful to me personally is because I'm also Native American and I'm from Santa Clara Pueblo. And in a lot of our pueblos and even the Navajo Nation, there's a lot of addiction and alcoholism. And I think that we need to hear more Native stories and more people in recovery speaking out to help other Native people, because there is a lot of historically a lot of generational trauma that's happened. And I just can really relate to her story on a multitude of levels, just because even in my own family, there is history of addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. What unique challenges do individuals face facing substance use disorders encounter specifically in New Mexico?
I think that most people, like I said, are getting this judgment right out the gate when they seek out an emergency room, seek out a primary care provider, and then all these conditions go untreated. And so, it's kind of a repeat of what I was saying earlier. It's just that we need more providers who are willing to have more understanding and educate themselves about addiction treatment so that people can get the help that they need, And to be honest, once somebody is in recovery, they have more capability of taking on their diabetes. They have more understanding of, following up with treatment. But until they get treatment for their addiction, nothing else is going to be a priority to them.
Yeah. Beyond download numbers, what does a successful episode look like to you?
Each podcast that I've released, just that one person that tells me, like, that meant so much to me to hear that story, and something that the person you interviewed said, it really resonated with me.
Connected.
Yeah, I think it's all worth it just to hear that one person tell me that, but it is a lot of people saying that. And so I can't stop now.
No turning back. Yeah,
no.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Actually, one of the ladies I interviewed, she said that she was doing her exposure hours for her certified peer support worker, and her mentor asked her to watch the podcast, an interview. And so then she started watching it, and she contacted me and was like, I would like to share my story too. And so I just thought it was so cool that in Farmington, she was seeing the podcast. And so she reached out to me and asked if she could also be on the podcast.
Where can people find your podcast on social media?
Currently, the podcast is on YouTube. So if you search Project Basecamp, you can find it there. Also, we have clips on Instagram and TikTok.
TikTok's a big one.
I know. TikTok, there's a lot more followers on TikTok than Instagram. So it's kind of interesting, the audience. But yeah, that's where I can be found. I also hope to put this podcast on Spotify, so that should be up too.
Yeah. Is there anything I may have overlooked that you'd like to share?
No, I just really appreciate you allowing me to come here.
No problem. Very important subject.
It's really cool to be on a podcast when you are a podcaster, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm just really happy to be here.
We're glad that you are here. One final question for you, Aria. New Mexico is considered to be the chili capital of the world. What's your preference, red or green?
I have to go with the red.
Red chili girl.
Yeah.
All right. Certified nurse practitioner with a Master of Science in Nursing and the founder and host of Project Basecamp podcast, Aria Candelaria. Aria, it's been a pleasure to meet you and share your stories and how important it is for you to get this message out.
Thank you so much for having me.
For the Viva New Mexico podcast, I'm Jamie Gannon Barreras, a.k.a. Jamie B.